Sharron, it is lovely to see you. How are you today?
I am absolutely fabulous and better for speaking with you. I'm looking forward to it very much.
So for those who are listening in on the podcast and not getting the benefit of this wonderful video, Sharron is super glamorous, which I expected because in the introduction, of course, we mentioned wonderful brands like Chanel and Christian Dior. And so you had to turn up glamorous, right?
I did, but also a very funny story. My sister called this morning and we FaceTime and she said, "What are you doing today?" So I said, "I'm doing a podcast." "Why?" She went, "You look very different to normal." So, I am very blessed to have phenomenal clients, and thank you for saying that. But yes, they are a glamorous bunch of clients, so very blessed.
Yeah, you're very lucky. You have a bit of an advantage there, but you've now ruined the illusion that this is what you look like every single day. But anyway, let's talk about your topic because this is really something that will help me as well personally. So I'm really interested. What would you say, with your expertise, makes a person happy and successful?
First of all, I love that question because I think, the first thing is let's just look at all children and take a whole class of 4-year-olds. The common denominator is full of joy, happy, and excited about life. So as a question, I think there's a lot of very simple answers. I also think success is very simple. I never complicate it in any of my work. I think it's complicated, people don't use it. So happiness comes from what we focus on. And it really is mindset. So whatever is happening in our life, and we've all got this last 2 years that we've traveled with very unique challenges, there is always what's right. So it's a very simple, are we focusing on what's right or what's wrong? And it becomes a mindset. But the mind and the brain will default to negativity unless there's one person who takes charge of it, and that's ourselves. So, for example, somebody who's got the news on repeat, they're having negative conversations, they're around a negative energy, they're unhappy, and they don't think that's their fault. And what I do as a success coach, I give them a very big wake-up call because a lot of my coaching is tough love. There's nobody knocks on my door in the morning and goes, "Oh, Sharron, I'm your fairy godmother. I'm here to sprinkle positivity and joy on you." We all have challenges. What are we focusing on? And it's how we train our brain. It's how we train our mind. That's what I bring into brands, to look at the positive. I'm a realist girl. I don't grow these major brands by being woo-woo. This is about not ignoring what we need to solve. That's the challenge. But let's focus on what is right. I also think, and it's this simple, I make a decision every morning to enjoy my day. It's that simple. I make a decision to be happy. And when there's problems, I make them challenges. When there's challenges, I'll look for a solution. I'll look at who can help, who can support. How do I do this? So life is exciting. It's a very, very precious gift. And we just need the manual of how we take charge. I mean, on the podcast, you'll not see me pointing, but I'm pointing to my head. How we take charge of the single greatest thing that you and I own, the single greatest thing. And it isn't the Chanel handbag, it's our mind. And when we've got the manual of how we take charge of that, Maria, life changes, and it changes in a day. This isn't a long process. This isn't 5 years of counseling. This is, okay, let me get it. It's common sense. It's quick. It's easy. And then how do I do it? So people who are successful and happy focus on things that make them successful and happy. And they program their brain differently to unhappy people.
But you see that when you say it like that, it sounds incredibly simple, right? It's really simple. I'm sure it's not easy, but what stops a person doing that then, as it's so simple?
Okay, another great question. I think there's two things, and I've learned this by working globally. I don't think it's just a UK. One, I actually think there's certain people who enjoy being miserable. There is sort of a way of saying, let me talk about everything that's wrong and none of it's my fault. And this is very UK versus global. And then we get a sympathy vote. So some people quite like that. It's quite cozy. Don't take me out of this very cozy everyone's feeling sorry for me mode. Well, again, I do tough love. If they're in my audience, we start and shift that mindset. But I think the most normal, obvious answer from my work is that, honestly, Maria, people have just formed bad habits. And we all can relate to that in any area of our life. You know, it could be fitness, nutrition, it could be our success, our hobbies. We can all fall into bad habits unless we stop and change the mindset. So I do think it's, for many people, it's become the norm. I've had so many hundreds and hundreds of people say to me, listening to you present the Mind Makeover, and that's when I was presenting to live audiences a couple of years ago, and I had maybe 2,000 people in front of me in an audience. Hundreds would say, that's a life changer. I never realized that I was living quite a miserable life. I was focusing on what wasn't right. So the answer is bad habits, number one, or people not only have the bad habit, they've actually got used to quite liking the sympathy vote. Now, when I'm a coach, I can't grow. I'm called the coach who adds millions to brands. That's not going to happen if Susie Smith in the audience decides to stay miserable. I only turn around brands by turning around and empowering individuals. And they are my greatest joys. My greatest joy is when an individual says to me, you know, my mind makeover was life-changing in all areas of my life. You know, I always feel that with an audience. I may be growing a brand like Chanel or L'Oreal globally, but I grow individuals. The brand is second. And that's my greatest joy.
I love that. That's really brilliant. When, I think you touched on it slightly, but when did you start to understand the importance of mindset personally for you?
I was very blessed, two areas in my life. One, my mum and dad had their own business, and it was very around, I'm a Sheffield girl, and it was very, let's be around the table, talk about the business. My mum and dad were, well, they'd have to be from Sheffield. They were manufacturing silversmiths. So my dad in particular was very entrepreneurial, and my sister and I were really encouraged to think that all things were possible. You had to work for them, however they were possible. And then the second blessing I had, I don't believe in luck. I think we make our own luck, but I do believe in blessings. And the second blessing was, I went to work, my first job in the cosmetic industry was for a brand that believed in the power of attitude. And it was before anybody used to talk about that. The entire training at that time was product, skill-based. It was training. Let me give you the skill to talk about this product. And they just spun that on its head. They just went, whoa, before we even go there, you know, we've got a very American approach is what they used to say. And we want to look at how you think. Boy, you know, that was revolutionary. And the fascinating thing, which is so funny, because I think there's so much fun in business, is we were a group of 20, 19 people, UK, hated this concept. I thought it was like the biggest light switch moment of my life. And I went back home and said to mom and dad, this is fascinating. Why doesn't everybody know this? Why doesn't everybody get this? And basically what the concept is, we start in our mind before we start in our body. And then I started to study, and I studied from being 19. So my first book was Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, which was the very first seminal book really into the mind-body connection. Again, I became the oddball. And, you know, Maria, I quite like that. I really was the oddball. You know, people were saying on training programs, well, we just don't like it. Why have we got to go into our thoughts? I was like a sponge. I was reading books. I was anything on the mind-body connection. And then I tested it in my own life. So, you know, I was doing vision boards, imagination, how I could push my brain, how I could train my brain, how I could use my brain and wire it for more confidence. And I think that's always given me an edge. in the work I do as a coach and has given me the greatest career working globally with some of the very top luxury brands in the world, because I bring to it, and I have done for over 30 years, the mind-body connection.
That is so brilliant that the company you worked for, you know, ignited that in you. And so that sort of makes me think that, did you call the Mind Makeover the book because of the makeup, and often people have a makeover? Is that where the title came from?
Absolutely. Yes. Clever you, because nobody else has ever said to me, is it because? And it is. It's a play on makeover. And I had different ideas on the title of the book. The publishers, Maria, hated everyone. But it's just impossible to dampen my enthusiasm. So I just kept coming back with another title. And the Mind Makeover was really a synergy of ideas. And it was a play. It was the publisher's idea that it was a play on the cosmetic brands that I work with. And then it really came from my heart, a really, really deep place in my heart, because for 20 years, I've run confidence mind makeover sessions for homeless young women who are, thank goodness, now not homeless, and they're safe and they're living in a Centrepoint hostel. And I think I'm in year 21 now. And I always called those the Mind Makeover, because what I did was I used to, pull in all the cosmetic brands as well with my great partner in this and team, Joe Fairley. And so we did, for the homeless young women, we would do an image makeover, and then I would do the mind makeover. And I think that's a lesson in business and life. The actual title was obvious. For 21 years, I'd been using it, but I missed it. And I tried lots of intellectual titles. But again, it's a mind makeover. Keep going, learn from your changes. And they're not mistakes, just learn from the changes. You just found a way not to do it. So yes, that's the combo of the title. And the second part of the title is very important to me, because it says the answers to becoming the best you, and then in variable yet. And I really fought for that part of the title with the publishers, because I don't believe anybody needs fixing. I think we're all pretty fabulous as we are. And my whole concept as a coach, I mean, I'm sort of really giggling as I say this. Chanel are my client. They don't need fixing. Estée Lauder Global do not need fixing. And I've been their success coach for over 25 years on various projects. So I'm a great believer in be the best you've ever been, or be the best yet. So it's saying, let's take everything that's fabulous and strong and powerful and unique, and let's actually just take it up a gear, take it up a level. And that again is a very big concept in my work. So mind makeovers don't fix anyone, because nobody needs fixing. We just, with a mind makeover, show people a better way to perform, a better way to live, an easier way to tap into that joy and happiness. And when people have joy and happiness and fulfillment, I trigger in individuals a desire to be better than they are today. That's how brands add 5 million, 3 million, move market share. It really is. When I say it's that simple, I never teach technique. I never teach sales. I teach perception in the mind of what each individual feels they're capable of. And that pushes their performance button.
So it goes back to what you learned, isn't it, in the beginning about thinking, isn't it? It's starting, as you said, starting the mind. I like the fact that you say it's about you, being the best you. So it's not trying to be anybody else. It's the best you yet. That's really powerful. And I also like the fact that you had the title. And so often we have so much genius in our businesses, so much great stuff, and we forget it, and we keep trying to create something new when we should use the what we have that we've discovered before that is still relevant. So lots of great stuff to pull out there. I want to pick your brain as well, though, because your book is packed with success strategies. Can you share some today? I know that obviously there's a lot in the book, but is there something you can share for our listeners?
I would absolutely love to, because I think everybody's got to have tools that they can say, right, I can use this now. And if I was asked, okay, what are your top things at the moment? You know, we're coming through COVID, when not in a lockdown, we've all gone through that situation. And what I'd love to do, Maria, is really pull out the things that I think are very relevant to people coping well at the moment. Because once we can cope better, we move into a good place. When we're in a good place, we can start moving to a great place. And then once we're in that great place, we can hit phenomenal. And I think it is a process. So for me, the biggest number one in all the work I've done through lockdown is our inner voice. Now, there's a whole chapter on this, but I know in our time together, what I'd like to do is just make it very simple and powerful. I say to audiences and to individuals, do you speak to yourself with the same voice that you speak to your best friend? That inner chat that's 24 hours a day, that never stops talking to you, is that voice exactly the same with yourself as it is with your best friend? So, and an example is, if your best friend, you know, was struggling in this time and maybe wasn't working and was looking for a new job, you know, would you encourage that friend? Would you nurture that friend? Would you tell that friend, you were fantastic in that previous job, you've got unique talents? And I've said this to an audience of 3,000 entrepreneurial women, and 3,000 hands went up. Almost like, are you ridiculous, Sharron? Of course I would speak like that to my best friend. And then I flip it and I say, so let's go to your inner voice, yours. What do you say to yourself when something goes wrong? And, you know, I did a little role play on stage and said, you know, that whole, well, you messed up today, Sharron. Well, you were ridiculous. I mean, that absolutely failed. Or that voice saying, well, I can't do this. I'm not capable of this. I'm not clever enough. I'm not young enough. I don't have a degree. And I said, who's got that enemy voice? And 3,000 hands went up, Maria, again. And so I said, so really, who are you betting on yourself to win? And it's a very simple flip. I don't want to complicate it in the time we've got. We have an inner voice. Your first question was, you know, really what makes one person successful and another not? It all starts on inner voice. You know, what do we say when we wake up? You know, a child at 4 does not wake up and go, oh my God, another COVID day. You know,
that's a really good example, actually. Absolutely, really good example. So true, so true. Actually, I speak more nicely probably to my dog. So maybe I would talk in the same way as I speak to my dog. My dog, even when he's naughty, you know, it's interesting. I'm going to have to work on my inner voice. So how do you turn a thought and an attitude of it's impossible to it's possible? Is it again the inner voice?
It is the inner voice, and I think there's also a strategy. So I'll give you a very quick story here so we can share for the listener. First of all, I love the word impossible, because I know many of us will have seen this quote, but I always look at impossible and I just change how I lay it out, because it's I am possible, I'm possible, split it. And real strong example of this is I wrote the book. I'd never written a book before. I'm going to just tell you top lines. And this isn't to impress anybody at all. It's just a very quick way that I can share the power of it and the technique of changing impossible to possible. Because boy, today more than ever, we need this skill. So the book was written. I was signed to the UK's #1 publisher, which was a blessing. We were sat around a table. They had far more experience than me, and I wanted my book to be launched in You magazine. I wanted that because there's over 5 million women readers. I wanted to empower as many people as possible. I think my demographic is far more female than male, and that was my goal. So I had Sharron Lowe from 19 years old, focused on the mind-body connection. I just saw possible. All I saw was possible. Now, the fun part was every single person at the publishers sat around the table, believed totally it was impossible, with a passion. So I had 18 people telling me it was impossible. I was first-time author. It was personal development. It would not, under any circumstances, go into You magazine. I then had an agent, and she said to me, it is impossible. I heard the word impossible so many times. Now, I would say to anyone listening, if you had highly skilled, experienced people who knew far more than me, telling you repeatedly it was impossible, what would happen to your inner voice? Well, we've got to speed up here. You would start and believe them. I'd got a skill base, which is the skills and the strategies in the book and the ones I use with clients. So I came back and realized I had to stop listening to them. I had to stop that energy coming into mine. So the first technique was, we're all a mobile phone battery. We all have 100% charge, and we have to decide what we do with that energy charge. If we want to watch the news on repeat, we'll come down to about 40%. If we want to talk to somebody negative about COVID, we'll come down to about 30. It's our battery. So I knew that strategy. So the first thing, I had to stop those conversations. I tried to influence based on impossible. I then had to work on my possible. So what I did, which is a strategy, I'm a great believer in visualization, imagination. I came back to my office here, and every time, this is a You magazine, every time You magazine launched a book, for 11 months, I bought You magazine, I took the front cover, I took a picture of what I thought my book would look like, it wasn't published, and I basically stuck my book on the front of You magazine. It's a strategy. So for 11 months, all I saw was Mind Makeover launched in You magazine, and I believed it. Now, this is a key strategy. I had no idea how I would get the book in to the magazine. So anybody listening that's got an idea, a concept, a vision for what they want, doesn't matter that you don't know how. It only matters that you start using the word possible. And I also believe fake it until you make it. So, you know, nobody jumps. There's no fairy godmother that says, Sharron, you can see possible. I have to work on that process. I have to create the mindset. So I visually created my book being launched in You magazine. I think I did 10 copies. And as I said, I stuck my book on the front, put them on the wall here. So every day I was writing the book, Miria, I was looking at my book in You magazine. I then got ideas. I was light, I was confident, I was fun, I was excited. Now, they're the energy bases of being a possibility thinker. If I thought impossible, I'd feel reserved, restricted, unsure. What if I look silly? Well, none of those emotions were on my radar. And then I went to an event because I believed that the editor of You magazine would be there. So I bought myself a ticket. And this is one of the things that I absolutely believe in. We can't just believe everything is going to happen. We have to actually move our body and take action, which is the mind-body connection. And I went and, you know, I had massive butterflies in my tummy. I went over to her, introduced myself, chatted, and there was an audience around her. And I thought, you've got one opportunity, and that's life. We get an opportunity and we either seize it or we let it go. And a mind makeover gives you that energy and confidence because, you know, Maria, I was going to ask her if my book could go in her magazine. I'm smiling here. What's the worst? What's the worst? She says no. Well, if she says no, I'm exactly where I was before I asked. So I went over it and I said, I'm writing a book. This is what it is. I want to empower brands, individuals, people, and I'd like you to copy it in your magazine. And the whole room went quiet, just went quiet. And she just did a giggle and she said, why don't we just give you the entire magazine? As sort of a throwaway comment. And I said, no, that's fine. I only need 4 pages. Now, the truth is I got 4 pages. My book was launched in You magazine. And the other part was they actually paid me to launch
Wonderful.
in You magazine. So I suppose top lines is see it, believe it, talk about it being possible. Look at visual things that will help you. You know, if you want to achieve something or own something, go and look at it, go and stand in it, go and get in that energy. Read things, learn things, put pictures everywhere, and then your energy will create opportunities. Then you need the mindset that says, I'm going to seize this opportunity. Because really, life is a journey. We should just have fun along the way.
Love that. Love that. We're rapidly running out of time, and I'm going to probably ask you the biggest, toughest question of the session here. I'm going to ask you how your work has changed in COVID times, because it must have been disrupted a bit.
I am so happy you've asked that, because I think this is one of the answers that can really support maybe the listeners on thinking outside the box. Maria, I have been so incredibly blessed with who I've worked with. My business changed immediately, it changed quickly. May I just share some top lines of things I've done? And I can't say I've done them. These are the clients being innovative and flexible and adapting very quickly to change. If I share that, I think, you know, I know some speakers who have almost stopped working, which I think is mindset, because they're seeing that audiences have gone. Well, what I did was, the first thing I did was I put my book onto an online program. So I started that in week 1 of lockdown 1. And then I had an online presence of an online book. I visualized that going global. So I put in the office here a huge visual representation. I'd created an online program. I would sell it globally. I was then asked to be speaker for a global beauty brand. And what I did, I'm saying this to support, is I said yes to that, of course. And then what we did was we agreed and negotiated that every country had a copy of my brand new, written in week 1 lockdown online program. So the online program went global. I was speaking for the cosmetic and perfumery industry at the Savoy. That's 800 people in the Savoy. I was speaking year 10. I've done that for 10 years. That was the first big event that was cancelled for me, Maria. We went straight into conversation. I'm a big partnership girl. I spoke with Copper. We had a coffee over a Zoom. I said, let's think ideas. Let's get creative. Let's not talk about what we can't do. We can't go to the Savoy. We went straight into Instagram Lives, and the industry brought me in as the motivational coach for the industry, just to keep everyone's morale up. And then one client, amazing, the fragrance shop, and the owner of the fragrance shop asked me to be their speaker, moved his team and myself into a fantastic studio, which I know a lot of businesses listening and speakers listening will relate to this. And then guess what he did, Maria? He booked all across the UK, in every city. He booked out the Everyman Cinema. He moved me into studio with him. We presented safely in studio. His entire workforce went into the cinemas all across the country and had popcorn, sat safe distances in the big sofas, and we were streamed into cinemas. I also did a huge amount of filming in my office here, and 2 clients sent in videographers to me, to my office, and we did very intense coaching, mind makeover coaching, that then became an online platform for mental wellness, increased performance. How do we perform in COVID times? How do we create loyalty? How do we generate new business? How do we add volume to sales? And a lot of clients have said to me that I came in as the only success coach, which is a great compliment to me, but I wish I was there with many others that came in with that positivity of rethink, think outside the box. I mean, if someone said to me, you won't be speaking at the Savoy, but everybody will be in cinemas all across the UK, I would have actually thought it was a weird film, but we did it and we moved quickly. And my business grew 3-fold in the lockdown the first year. And that's because partnering with the new clients and existing clients, we thought differently, and we did that very quickly, Maria. But boy, we've had some fun, and we've deeply supported the mental wellness, deeply, of the most important thing they have, which is their people.
You know what? You practiced exactly what you've preached all the way through. You turned the impossible into the possible, and you fantastic, brilliant. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. I've really enjoyed hearing all of your work and all of your success. I hope it wasn't too painful.
Maria, I have adored it. And I just want to say thank you, a massive thank you from me, because, you know, to be able to share and just have people listen, that one individual could just think, that's made me rethink my business. That's made me see another way that I could do this. That's made me see hope, because, you know, the opposite of darkness isn't light, it's hope. And you've given me that opportunity to share, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful for that. Thank you.
You are very welcome. And thank you to everybody for listening to The Speaker Show. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. You can keep up with future episodes on the Speakers Associates website, which is speakersassociates.com, or your favorite podcast app. And grab a copy of Sharron's book, The Mind Makeover, The Answers to Being the Best You Yet. And if you would like Sharron to speak at your next conference or event, please contact Speakers Associates in plenty of time, because you don't want to be disappointed. You've heard how busy she is. I will see you all next week. Thank you for listening.